I call the meeting to order. Let's see. And Pledge of Allegiance.
Okay, stand where you are, hand on your hearts, and I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Roll call.
You have a quorum, and I believe everyone is a commissioner. So, excuse me, except for alternate Strauss. So at the next item, you can seat her.
Okay.
Or Commissioner Singh.
Okay, so let me make sure I've got, so it's Commissioner Davis, alternate Commissioner Strauss, Christian Cadoy, and Commissioner Sharma. Am I missing someone else?
Just yourself.
Oh yeah, I forgot about me. There we go. Well, great. So we're going to seat Becky Strauss as commissioner for this meeting.
Correct.
So terrific. Thank you for being here, Becky. Next item is the approving of the agenda for today. Do I have a motion?
I'll motion to approve.
Okay, thank you. What about a second?
I'll second.
Okay. So shall I take the vote individually on this?
Yes, please. Because you're virtual, we just need to do the roll call.
Okay. Commissioner Davis?
Aye.
Commissioner Strauss?
I don't know if Becky can hear us.
Can you hear us, Becky? Wave your hand or raise your hand if you can. I don't think that she can.
Okay.
Okay. What about Commissioner Cadoy? Is that how you pronounce your name, Kristen?
Oh, Cadoy, yes.
Cadoy? Commissioner Cadoy?
Yes.
And Commissioner Sharma?
Aye.
And I also vote yes. So even without Commissioner Strauss, I think it passes.
Yes, that's correct.
Next item is approval of the meeting minutes. Do we have those?
They were included in your packet.
Oh, they were. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So again, I need a motion. Anyone?
I'll motion to approve.
Okay, thank you. And a second?
I'll second.
Okay, thank you. Once again, we'll take a vote on approving the minutes. Commissioner Davis?
Yes.
Commissioner Strauss, can you still not hear us? Okay, Commissioner Cadoy?
Here, yes.
Okay, and Commissioner Sharma?
Aye.
And I also vote aye. So the minutes from last meeting are approved. The next item is a public forum. Do we have any public forum items? Or participate?
Yeah, it's going to be by email for tonight. And there are no emails in public comment for this commission at this time.
Okay, terrific. Let's move on to the next item, which is announcements.
Miss Renee, I have a question. I said aye, but then I'm still looking for the meeting minutes for the last meeting. The email that I'm looking at is agenda, and it has only one document. Was the meeting minutes sent out separately or?
No, it should have been in that packet. So Rosanna's looking at it right now. we can come back to that.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, we can go
Can
back.
you hear me?
Yes,
Thank
we
you
can hear you, Becky.
Oh, thank you.
Okay,
Sorry.
great.
Okay.
Good. Thank you. I'm glad you're with us, Becky.
I'm sorry again.
So nice catch, Commissioner Sharma. So we're going to circle back around to the minutes, and now we're going to move on to announcements.
Staff has no announcements at this time.
Okay, terrific. Moving now to business items, and we have an update I see on the Parks and Recreation Master Plan.
All right, so good evening, commissioners. We are very excited to bring you an update this evening of the city's Parks and Recreation Master Plan. I am going to turn this over to Project Manager Lee Heck. He's from our engineering department, and he will introduce the consultant Gates and Associates, and then from there they have a nice presentation for you all.
Nice.
Okay. Good evening, commissioners. My name is Lee Ha Iem, an associate civil engineer with Engineering Department, Design and Construction Division. And I am also the project manager for Park and Recreation Master Plan update. In late 2019, the city has retained Gate and Associates to complete an update to the city Park and Recreation Master Plan, which was last updated in 2008. So basically it's more than 10 years already. So for the last couple of months, the city staff and consultant have conducted several rounds of community outreach and survey just to understand what the community needs and the preference on the city park and recreation system. And today we would like to bring those findings and present to the committee for feedbacks and comments. So next we will have our consultant Gate and Associates to provide you the presentations. Please welcome, I believe, Melanie or Linda.
Right. Can you hear me, Liak?
Yes, we can hear you.
Right. Yeah, you always, all that testing of the volume. So you can go to the next slide. Since you've already hopped into introducing the team here, the city, and Liak, is there anybody else on the city staff that you'd like to introduce at this point in time that's been contributing to it? Okay. That said, I'm Linda with Gates and Associates. Also on the presentation, we have Melanie, who's the project manager with our staff. She'll be doing any fact checking if we need that as we go through. We also have Matrix Consulting Group on our team, and they have been looking at the recreation programming, fee assessment, and cost recovery. So that's our team. Next slide. So the purpose of this meeting tonight is to review with you some of the progress we've on the Park and Rec Master Plan and to receive input from the commission. So I have about a 20-minute presentation with you. If it goes too long, raise your hands or something. It's a fascinating project. We're loving collaborating on you as Milpitas sort of begins this next chapter. And also, you know, during COVID, as people learning to work from home and they're appreciating their park system and we're all doing virtual, it has been fascinating to me. So I kind of get carried away sometimes with this whole thing. Next slide. So I'm sure you all know the purpose of a recreation master plan update is to sort of do an assessment of your existing facilities, where we stand now since 2008. We've also in this one, we're looking at your fee structure and your recreation programs and exploring some cost recovery targets for those programs. So that's something a little different than was done in the last update. As always, a meaningful community input is key to developing a Park and Rec master plan. And ultimately, we want to end up with a roadmap to guide future improvements to existing parks, plan parks, and programs. And part of that roadmap will include action items related to funding and phasing of the different projects so that your city staff can move forward allocating resources and funds appropriately. Next slide. So one of the fascinating things right now while this is going on is you're also having your general plan update. And so that's great because the general plan has created some guiding policies that feed into how the Park and Rec master plan is developing. And I think these are two that I pulled out, I think, that are really critical right now. One is it's the needs of all residents. So we want to make sure seniors and teens and children are all getting represented. We want to make sure that longtime residents as well as the new residents that are moving into your community and higher density developments, all like, how do we meet those recreation needs of all that group? And then clearly, when you have limited parkland opportunities as a mature city, collaboration with the county and the school district, which you've already been doing, but that's part of your strategy of how you meet your recreation needs. Moving on. Next slide. So one of the things that's emerging out of sort of the general plan process and also the Milpitas Metro specific plan is you have the general plan set certain goals like a 5 acres per 1,000, but a minimum of 3 because they recognize there's other ways to achieve that goal. And then when you get into some of the higher density areas, 3.5 acres with 2. So there's a little bit of the idea of maybe it's not just a matter of acreage, but also the experience, so that how do we get the maximum value out of the parkland that we have? Currently, if you sort of average out, you have about 2.2 acres of parkland that are being used because some is in this, 2 acres and some is at the 3 acres. So how do we really take advantage of your acres? So that idea of experience over acres, when I listened to the Milpitas Metro, I thought that was a good way of capturing the idea of creating a great park system. Next slide. So as I said, we're collaborating not only with the general plan update, but you have the Milpitas Metro specific plan that's happening right now, the bike and pedestrian master plan that's happening right now. And then this is a park and master plan update. It's actually a 2008 park and rec master plan that we're updating. So we're using that document and we're building on it. We're not starting from scratch. We're kind of evaluating what worked and didn't work and moving forward to create something even better. Next slide. So as we look back on the 2008 Park and Rec Master Plan, over the last 10 years, the city's invested like $26 million on improvements. I mean, that's amazing. Grading like new fields, new skate park, pool renovation, a number of neighborhood park redesigns, in addition to sort of playground and sport courts improvements. I mean, your staff has done an amazing job sort of using the 2008 master plan to guide their development. So now we're going to move forward, and in 10 years, we'll be sitting here talking about all the great things we built based on this plan. So that's kind of exciting. Next slide. So efforts to date. So as we mentioned, we've gone out to do assessments of all 36 parks and 6 facilities. We've been doing demographic and benchmarking. We've looked at the program fee assessment and cost recovery, a great deal of community outreach, and begin to develop some preliminary goals, policy and standards and recommendations that I want to share with you tonight, some of that work. Next slide. So we've gone out to every single one of the parks and we looked at the existing condition, what they have, what's there, what deficiencies might be available there, and sort of noted opportunities, like what are some opportunities to sort of enhance each of those parks to meet sort of the evolving recreation needs of the community. Next slide. Also, one of the things we look at is how your demographics maybe have been changing over the last 10 years and how we project they'll change over the next 10 years. Obviously, Milpitas is a very diverse community. One of the things you notice is your population is aging. It was aging before, but each year it's a little bit greater aging population, although you do have a lot of families. I think another thing that's really critical to note is a lot of the new residents coming in are living in higher density development. So what does that mean when people's backyards begin to become the public parks? How do we start addressing that need? As we're looking at this Park and Rec Master Plan, we're aligning with the general plan's projected growth to 106,000. So you can see, once again, we're going to add another 20,000 people into this population. How do we adapt for that change? Next slide. One of the things that we do in the process is called benchmarking. So Milpitas is unique and we want to be unique, but one of the ways you find out your sort of sweet spot often is by comparing yourself to peer communities that maybe have similar densities, similar economics and such. And you look like, how many sports fields, soccer fields do they have per 1,000? How many tennis courts do they have per 1,000? which doesn't mean you have to match it. It's a piece of information when you begin to actually find out what's unique about you. So we've done some benchmarking and comparison to similar communities to sort of understand what's unique about you. Next slide. So not only have we been doing benchmarking related to your park facilities, but Matrix has also been looking at benchmarking, comparing different programs that are offered, like, and what the cost of different programs is and the number in the community served. So in some areas, Milpitas may be lower cost, like, in terms of rentals for a picnic area for 50 people. In some areas like Tappan Ballet, their fees may be higher than Mountain View. There's a whole report done on this. I think they looked at like more than 50 different programs and did comparisons with these other cities. Once again, leading to the idea of, are there some room for expansion in fees and potentially more cost recovery? We talk about cost recovery. It's not per program, but overall department. Some programs we charge lesser fees because we think it's really important to offer that to our community, where other programs we can charge higher fees because there may be more of a luxury item. But looking at beginning to create some cost recovery on the programs that your city offers. So that's part of that benchmarking assessment we've been doing. Next slide. So as I mentioned, engaging the community it's the name of the game, because how do you make something that's tailored to Milpitas if you're not finding out from the people in Milpitas what they want? So far we've done 2 rounds of outreach. So the first round is kind of, what do you want? What do you need? What do you like about your city? It's much more open-ended. In the second round, we start dialing in on some things we found out in the first round to seek more information. When we went on the first round, it was really great because we could still do some outreach like in person. We had some pop-up booths, events and such like that. In the second round, we've been doing it virtually with focus groups and town halls and such like that. In both rounds, we've had online surveys supporting our outreach efforts. And I'll get into some of the findings from that with the next slide. Next slide. One of the key things when you're in a virtual world is getting the word out. And even meeting with you guys tonight, getting the word out about what's going on and making sure you're sharing with your friends and neighbors and community that this process is going on so they have an opportunity to input. And the city has been very good at sort of supporting us with the social media platforms and school newsletters and HOAs and all sorts of things. We have a website page up on the community website that's just focused on the Milpitas Park and Recreation Master Plan. One of the great things is we've cross-linked with people looking at the general plan or the Milpitas specific plan or the bike and pedestrian master plan. We cross-link and we feed them into each other, sort of hoping to meet a real cross-section of the community with the different needs and such. Next slide. So in round 1, we had about 700 participants when you combine sort of the pop-up events and the online survey. We tried to make things available in English, Spanish, Chinese, and Vietnamese to our participants. And what emerged are the things that people like about the existing park system. So we want to make sure as Milpitas goes forward that you always have those kinds of things in your parks and in the new parks, because that's what people in Milpitas value, and the kinds of things that they want to add. And this is consistent with what was in the 2008 plan. Updating playgrounds is a big priority. It was then, it is now. The city has been systematically undertaking it. More community events. I think this is because they love the community events you have. Your city does a great job of community events. And I think people come to appreciate community events even more as we've entered COVID and such. Indoor sports, exercise stations, lighting. So these are the kinds of things that in round 1 we're emerging as the things that people would like to see more of in their park system and the things they want to make sure we retain in our park system. Next slide. So now we're in round 2. And as I mentioned in round 2, we're dialing down a little bit further. So one of the things that I want to share with you is there's an interactive survey online right now. And not only does it have some general questions, but it allows you to go into specific park sites and comment on a specific park that's near your house. And that's up and available right now. To date, we've had over 400 people participate in that survey. We've also conducted 3 focus groups, and we have 2 virtual town halls coming up, one this coming Saturday on the 10th and one on the 14th. You should register to attend those webinars, and please encourage your friends to attend them, because I don't want to be alone. So please have people come and participate. Next slide. As I mentioned in the survey that's up online now, we pulled up what some of the trending results are right now. We're not, the survey is not closed, but trending results. And as people can go online and comment on specific parks, here's the thing where they can go on and talk about specific parks, what they'd like to see. So we're getting some interest in a pump track at Murphy Park or Gill or Sinuit, you know, a fenced dog park, fitness and such. So this is kind of nice because not only is it community-wide, but also your neighborhood park. And I would encourage you go, and the parks you're familiar with and you use, to go on and share with us your ideas. Next slide.
Where do you find this?
If you go to the city's website, and I will have the, it'll lead you to the Park and Rec master plan, but I also have the, you know, the type in code thing that you can have. What is that?
Okay.
The website address. That's it.
Okay. Thank you.
Whole thing. So because we've known that playgrounds and events were emerging as high priority, we kind of dialed down in this round to find out a little bit more specific, like people want playgrounds, which neighborhood should we locate playgrounds in first, and got some criteria for prioritization there. What type of events were most popular, the large citywide events like the 4th of July, events that support local businesses. I think people really are wanting to, you know, link the economic benefits of parks with the economic health of the community, and then very much family focused. Also, there was a lot of interest in indoor sports. You know, that had been ranked high in the first survey. So we're like, well, what indoor sports are you looking at? And, you know, it was a yoga studio, basketball, ping pong, and table tennis. These are the things that have been emerging on as we dial down on those questions. Next slide. We also had some program specific input, like what kind of programming is the Milpitas community interested? Because even though we're benchmarking, just because it's in Fremont doesn't necessarily mean Milpitas people want that. So, you know, emerging with sort of adult fitness, yoga and Zumba, adult enrichment classes, more teen sports. I think these are the things people feel they'd like to see more of. And then looking at the timing, and you can see sort of Saturday and Sundays, you know, after 6 p.m. lunch, you know, is this all the work from home people are now saying, oh, and we want to do programs, which is very interesting, you know. Next slide. I mentioned before that we also had an opportunity to conduct some focus groups, which were really, really beneficial. The city helped us get together. We talked to organized sports, teens, and also new residents, people that have moved into the community recently, maybe in some of the higher density development, and what they were looking for. So a great discussion and lots of input, but I'm just sort of summarizing some of the key things. So, you know, a lot of your sports are met at your central park, but also at through your schools, and they would like sort of maybe stronger relationships, not that they're not strong, but between the parks and the schools, so that maybe some of them, the school sites are being maintained or programmed by the parks department rather than the school, because it's difficult sometimes for people to interact with the school. They all want access to those amenities that, you know, like parking, storage, restrooms. Storage came up for everybody a lot. Expand the usability, recognizing that we're unfortunately not growing any more parkland in Milpitas. So recognizing that we may need to look at adding lighting or synthetic turf or things like that, that increase the usability of a field for longer periods of time, or when you have two sports using the same field, like just making more hours in the day and having a lawn that doesn't wear out, like so you don't have to put it down. I have to say, I have never had a sports group that we met with, and we had people from cricket and baseball and softball and the sports courts and stuff, more collaborative. I mean, totally entering that spirit of we have to work collaboratively, like on sharing fields, maybe concessions, batting cages. Cricket's like, we can use the baseball batting cages. We can work it out. People really, it was really great. Next slide. Teens. So often this is a user group that, you know, they use the park when they're little, and then at a certain point they stop using the parks unless they're part of an organized sports group. So we went and asked this group of teens who were amazing. There's 10 groups of 10 teens of what kind of things would lead them to parks. And they immediately mentioned kind of informal uses that were a little more geared to them, you know, like ping pong outdoors, or a swing that wasn't like in a playground swing, but kind of a cooler swing that they could hang out on, or a climbing wall, or things that were like more advanced and more challenge for them. They responded to some of the parks feel a little aging and dated, and, you know, like some of the site furniture wasn't that good of condition. They'd like to have Wi-Fi. I mean, you know, they want their parks to be cool. Interesting enough, really like natural feel and kind of sustainability, not all super manicured. They wanted some place that they could retreat to. Social activities, and this is really emphasized. We had a couple people that had obviously moved into Milpitas within the last year, a couple teens who didn't know anybody because they're used to going to school and meeting people. So the idea that they could maybe have met people through the park system to socialize would have been great. But something that organized it, like maybe an astronomy night or food trucks or something like that's an event that allowed them an excuse to go to the park and meet others. They commented on sort of use conflicts, like the pathways. A lot of them are over at Dixon Landing. They're like, wow, by the time you get the bicyclists and the skateboarders and everybody, it seems a little crowded. They also felt some of the uses at some of the parks, like basketball and stuff, and there might be a user group that kind of dominates that. So it was hard for them to break in and find a time when they could use it too. Apparently, one of the barriers to them using the park was safety concerns. I mean, parents, they were all girls, right, in this teen group, because they just are socially, you know, participatory. The parents, then they were concerned about them going to parks. And so that kind of like parents' concern over the need to socialize, like how can we make a park feel safe to the parents so that their children can be using them to meet and socialize. They also commented a lot on making parks comfortable in the summer because they're in school. They can't get to the parks that much in the winter. So they want shade structures, some spray elements to keep it cool, things because that's their high use time. And, you know, the longer evenings in the summer and such, you know, kind of long days, they'd like it to be a little bit more comfortable for their summer use. Next group, next slide. So we also had an opportunity to talk to, as I said, some new residents who had more recently moved into your community. And they were really eager for things that would, ways to get to know their neighbors, you know, and they were like, you know, exercise stations that are arranged in clusters. So, you know, with 6 to 10 foot distance, but I can working out and talking to a neighbor, or like planned activities like yoga in the park or Zumba or movies. They're dying to get to know each other in their neighborhood. There is some of the facilities, there was a lot of discussion about Bob McGuire Park. The tennis court is very heavily used, and it doesn't seem to be any kind of formal system for, you know, for signing up for play or controlling that. So they would love to figure out like a scheduling board or a clock or some way to deal with that. They'd also like some other amenities because they go to the park and the tennis is being used, and what else can you do? Paddleball, or they wanted adult swings. That was interesting to me. I guess everybody wants swings, and like the ping pong or such, like other kinds of uses that they could do when the tennis courts were being occupied. Convenience, walkability is a major thing to them, to be able to walk to the neighborhood park. As you know, with small children, they really want restrooms in the neighborhood parks, and they'd like Wi-Fi because so many people now are, you know, working from home and they want to be able to take a break. And they also like the idea of rental space, either whether it's the building like at Bob McGuire, or just a picnic tables with a shade structure, to be able to reserve it for family gatherings and such. Because once again, a lot of these people are living a little bit higher density and can't necessarily host 20 people for a birthday party in their backyard. But one of the blocks for them is parking. Often, you know, to rent a facility and to not have parking, they said, well, what if there was sort of, when you rented a facility, you got permit parking for a couple hours in an area, so you knew at least you had a certain number of parking stalls and such. So that was one of their ideas for some of the new residents thing. But they love Milpitas and they love their parks. They just were so eager to contribute more ideas. It was really fun. Next slide. So another part of how we're looking at the park master plan, because I said it's like not only it's like a vision, but an action, like how you implement things. And as we do prioritizations, what's some of our criteria? And parity is often that you're wanting to make sure that your improvements are spread throughout the sort of 4 quadrants of the community, making sure that not just one user group is getting served, like all the improvements for soccer and there's nothing for seniors or for bird lovers, the capacity at different things, conditions. So as we go through, we sort of develop criteria and we rank it to help us understand what improvements are most critical. Next slide. So we take this criteria. Oh yeah, I'm sorry. I chitty too much. Go on, Molly, please.
In the previous slide, the parks had letters after them, N, S, C. I'm wondering what they mean.
Neighborhood there's a neighbor park, community parks. It's probably a special use park. So these are you have categories of parks, like there's community, neighborhood, special use, urban park. So those are just letters that are referring to, I could talk all night about all this stuff. So but good to say that. That's your categorization of how your park sizing works. Okay. Thank you for asking that, because I would have gone right over that. Next slide. So we take all your parks and some of this ranking criteria to sort of help find where you need to go first. And then we look at sort of a time frame over the next 10 to 20 years. This is something that should happen the next 1 to 5 years. This is the next 6 to 10 years. Cost, some things are high cost, medium cost, or low cost. And so you're thinking, how much can you do in each chunk of time? So this sort of is a working tool. We're dialoguing with staff about how to fit it in as sort of budgets emerge and such. And this is a tool that you will use over the next 10 years, because you kind of, every few years, you have to kind of shuffle things a little bit depending on your CIP budgets and such. Next. As I mentioned before, one of the things we want to do is develop some service levels, like particularly as new development occurs and new parks are created, that, if you add another, 2,000 people, you should not only add more parkland, but you should add one more community garden and one more dog park and such. So to create some kind of guidelines, so you don't keep ending up with parks all building the same thing and you never get the range of facilities you want. So these are things that we're working on right now that are outgrowths of our assessments and our community needs to sort of, as I said, turn it into roadmap that we can move forward with. Next slide. So you asked, so current engagement opportunities. There's a project website that you can go to and interact with and send comments to. And here's the code for the interactive survey. But if you just go to the website, there's a click there that takes you to the survey, and you don't have to enter this whole address in. And if you haven't taken it yet, please go to and get 5 friends to participate too, and 5 of their friends, because it's really how we know how to move forward. Okay. Next slide. Okay, here, this is a trick. So see, this is, if you go on to the website, these are some of the questions. So one of the things, another question we've asked about is all the online programs and such. So do people like that we're offering a lot of online programs now? And it feels like people are liking it. And they want to go back to some of the in-person ones, but these are the things they also like being offered online. So COVID has showed us some new opportunities. Next slide. So the next steps, just what's going on now, is we're going to have these 2 virtual town halls I mentioned to you. We are going to be looking a little bit more at some of the joint use opportunities or partnerships that we could be having to sort of stretch our parkland. finalize our prioritization criteria and our draft recommendations, and develop an administrative draft that looks at short, medium, and long-term project recommendations. We'll take that out to the community again, like the draft in our third round of outreach, like this is our conclusions, what do you think? And do a cost analysis and recommendation review. So this is kind of, this is a progress update. Next slide. So this is an opportunity for ask your questions, but if time permits, I wouldn't mind if you'd let me interview a little bit you as a focus group, because you're one of our demographics. What are the barriers to using Park and Rec programs if you're not using them as much as you could? And what are some of the things you'd like to see in the Milpitas Parks or Recreation Program? So ask your questions, but if you also want to let me ask my questions at the same time, that would be great.
Well, I'll start,
Okay.
just because something popped into my mind in response to the first question you have posed here. I live pretty close to Cardozo Park, and prior to COVID was a pretty regular user of the sports center. But one of the barriers to using it, to me, I know it's budgetary, but with limited hours, the fact that it closes, closed early some days and it's not open on Sundays, and it's the after hours, before and after work and weekend hours when I really want to be able to use some of these facilities, and they're not always open. The pool is another, my wife is a swimmer, and the limited pool hours when, you can do exercise swim, I think inhibits her from using it more often.
Okay. Thank you.
I'm thinking. I don't know. I pretty much have enjoyed all of the parks. I can't think of any kind of improvement.
I mean, a lot of the results of the surveys were the same kinds of things I would have suggested. They're the same things I enjoy. I have to say my experience with the parks is pretty consistent with I think what your research is showing. So I don't want to just repeat all that, but like I also enjoy the citywide events, again, because I live close to Cardozo Park, so I love the 4th of July celebration.
Oh, yes.
Really miss it this year, and those things are particularly enjoyable.
Linda, is it possible to copy and paste the URL for the parks recreation, Milpitas recreation?
Yes, I'll put it in the chat.
Masterplan.com. I can't find it on Google. That's surprising.
Let me.
That is disappointing.
Yeah.
I also really like the idea of lighting. Again, in the winter, sometimes, I want to go for a walk or whatever, and the parks, sometimes the park is lit because there's football practice or something going on. I'm much more likely to go over there and walk, with more lighting. So I really like that suggestion. I know, again, that's expensive, but.
Okay.
Got it. Thanks.
Also really like the idea of, development of additional walking paths and trails. I'm a big walker, and a lot of people in my neighborhood are also big walkers. It's, other than organized sports, I think that's one of the primary uses I see of this park over here. You'll see a lot of, particularly seniors, over there walking. And it's nice to just have a longer and more interesting and more varied walking path, maybe some that connect up some of the parks. I don't know what the ability is to take advantage of, for example, some of the area along Guadalupe Creek and make that into more of a usable walking trail, but that I think is something that would really get a lot of use.
Sounds good.
Oh, unless somebody else wants to add something, thank you for letting me dominate for a while, but it's fascinating, and your staff has been amazing to work with, and your community has been so willing to participate when we can find them. So if you can pass on that, message to people, that would be great. And hopefully I'll see you on Saturday or the 14th.
Thank you.
Thank
May
you,
I ask I'm sorry, what time on Saturday?
Melanie.
10 a.m.
10 a.m.
And the
Thank you.
14th is an evening one, so we could kind of try and get
Yep.
a working crowd.
Yep.
Thank you very much.
Great.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you. It sounds great. Thank you for all your work on this.
Thank you, Linda. Thank you, Melanie.
Thank you, Renee.
Good to see you guys.
Thank you.
You're muted, Molly.
Okay, I was just apologizing that I was so interested in the report. I forgot my responsibilities here to kind of move the meeting along. So do we need to have a motion to accept the report or are we good?
I think you're okay. I think tonight was really just to show you the work that's been done so far. Allow you guys any comment. I think hearing that from this group that a lot of the community input that's been gathered reflects some of your own desires and popular areas of participation. I think that's great. Definitely take the survey if you haven't already. As commissioners, you can share it with your family and friends that are in Milpitas. You guys you can help get the word out. I know many of you are very active in the community, so that's very helpful. And if you can make one of the town halls, please do. And I think that's it for tonight. You'll see this again for sure. We will obviously have to take it to council for final blessing when we're done. But it's a great document and it'll live for another maybe 10 years or so. So
Wonderful.
Great. Thank you. So I think now we're moving on to subcommittee reports and updates, and I'll just take them in the order that they appear in the agenda. The first is a report that we have on the history projects park names from that subcommittee.
I have nothing to report.
Yes, we are working on setting up a time to meet right now.
Yes. Yes, exactly.
Okay, moving on to the next one, the historic site list. I'm on that committee and I have to apologize. We haven't done anything, but in part that's been because I've been ill. I had a surgery about 6 weeks ago. I'm just now recovering from that. However, thanks to Ricky, we now have a meeting set up for next Tuesday. So we're going to get going on this, and I promise we will have something to report at the next meeting.
Same with me, myself.
I think, has everyone, by the way, on that subcommittee had a chance to pick up the packet that the report on all historical information?
Yeah, I picked mine up.
Yeah, I got mine too.
Okay, great. And thank you for, it was very easy to pick them up over there. So thanks for making it available in that way. Okay, next committee, bicycle pedestrian trails.
I have nothing to report. I still need to make a meeting.
Okay. Well, this is good. We're all getting our butts kicked here to get going on this, but I'm still sort of in the summer mode, but I'm ready
it's
to
October.
My whole sense of the passage of time has been all messed up by COVID. So
It's true.
I
I
suspect I'm not alone in that. I suspect.
No,
Yes.
you're not.
Okay.
Yes.
So, and I think I am on that committee with you, Kristen. So I'm all ready to get going on that. So hopefully we'll set up a meeting and we'll get going on that. And then there's one last subcommittee, the Sister Cities Committee.
Yes, we have sent some emails. Probably need a little direction from staff on what we should do.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay. Anything else anyone wants to report on the subcommittee? So we're all committing to have a little bit more
Yes.
time.
Perfect.
Yes.
You guys,
I'm personally committing to that anyway, so.
Me
no, we
too.
appreciate
Yeah.
that. From a staff perspective, I just want to make sure that you guys have the resources that you need to get going. So when you do start meeting next week, you kind of have what you need. For the Sister Cities, one staff will reach out and help with that. But again, if you get to a point where you're kind of like, oh, I don't know where to, if I should turn right or left, then just reach out to Rosanna and I.
I think sometime in the spring or summer, I had sent you an email asking for some clarification on the historical subcommittee, and you provided me with a very helpful email, and so that's what we'll be using, I think, as a centerpiece of that we have on Tuesday.
Yeah.
Thank you for that. I appreciate that.
We're here to help, so anytime.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah,
I think
I'll have questions.
Okay.
But I'm going to catch up.
Okay.
Okay. City liaison reports.
Well, you heard from Gates and Associates a lot of what staff has been working on the last few months. It is exciting to update that master plan for sure. Other things that we've been working on, we did open the pools at the Sports Center today. I know when you brought that up, Molly, I was very excited for your wife.
Yeah, she's going to be, she is happy.
Yeah, so under the current county and state guidance and orders, we can open outdoor pools. So we did start today. We were going to open last week, but then the air quality was too bad due to the unfortunate fires in the space. So we did open today. So we have lap swimming back open, and we have water exercise back open. Limited hours right now as we ease in, and due to the orders, there is a much smaller capacity, but we're maximizing the pool space within that. So things like one person per lane. The square footage of the pool determines how many people can be in there. Instead of 40 people, we might have about 10. But people were extremely excited today. I think we, just made one gentleman's day. He was like, I'm so happy, to be back here. And
that's great.
Staff felt good. Everyone felt confident. A lot of very stringent and specific protocols when it comes to cleaning. So Rosanna and her staff led that effort. So thank you for that. We have a lot of virtual classes, after school programs that kicked off in the last couple weeks. Our After the Bell program is now virtual, which is pretty cool. We're calling it the Virtual Kids Clubhouse. Fitness classes are online. Teens, we're setting them up with some, how to actually start your first bank account, and how are they going to achieve their community service hours, in a virtual world. So there's a lot out there right now. Yes, it's online and it's more screen time, but keeping people connected is super important right now. So that's what we've been doing.
Nice.
That's your staff report.
Great. I assume that since the city council's having a big meeting tonight, that there's not going to be any reports from a council member, or is there?
We have no council member this evening, so we can move on to the next item.
Okay, which is work plan subcommittee updates, which we've already done, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, then I think that's it. And unless there's anything else that someone feels like they'd like to add, I think we're ready to adjourn.
Thank you, Molly.
Okay. All right. Thank you, everybody.
Yes.
Thank you. Good night.
Thank you, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Subcommittee.
Bye.
Yes,
And
that's
then-